There's this customer we had, and he was like 10% higher than everyone else on a freaking $1 million job, and he got it. Measuring tools where you don't have to do your own measurements play a huge role in simplifying this process because now you can order data and just save time that you can put onto production reviews. You can just intelligently talk to customers about, like Fred was saying, zoning. If you got A, B, and C zones, you sort of know. And let me just pull this out real quick so that this whole example becomes more tangible. If you had zones on this map, then you sort of know which areas you would service more versus less. And that it's a very obvious way to optimize your cost without losing out on profitability. Now, this level of detail is necessary to make sure that this zoning analysis that you would do for estimating is actually accurate. And I'll bet you anything, like a lot of guys in the market don't do that. They don't do that. And it's a necessary thing in the process just to make sure that you're not your process is scientific and you're not just going off cut because everybody else is going off cut too. And somewhere in the sales process, that will become very obvious for the customer too. And so you want to get ahead of that, right? So you want to have that intelligent discussion about the property. So even if by chance you are priced a little bit higher, the customer knows you went through your due diligence and this is a legitimate price being asked for. And that's what Daniel is talking about here, like having that ability to measure sites out day one. And then when you're meeting with customers, you apply that zone and suddenly you've got an understanding of how, this property distributes itself in different categories and levels of services, better pricing on the fly.
Yep.
And the production review. Sorry, go on, Fred.
No, and the thing is, if you're using the detail that you can produce with these kinds of tools, then you can create an advantage for yourself in asking the customer about their priorities and pricing the project according to the client's priorities and finding places where you can lower the need for higher detailed services and save them money but give them the higher level impact they need on those high visible or high value target sites on the property. And when you're asking questions like this and talking about that, your level of of gravitas to the client goes up exponentially because most of their scopes say mow it 42 times, fertilize it. It's like that. But you know that the back D zone doesn't need to have 5 applications or be mowed every week. And you can delineate this out very easily. If in the old way that we're doing it by hand, or you're looking at the property visually, and just kind of doing what I call a guesstimate, 180-degree circle with a wet thumb type thing that we do. And some people are really sharp about that, but you can't go inside of that and manipulate it easily. With these tools, you can manipulate it precisely and give a much higher level of deliverable to your client. And you can also make them aware of that process as you're presenting to them.
While what Fred's saying might sound like a lot of work, but you just saved a lot of time in not having to do all those clicks on site. It's all automated now. Use that time to build a better estimate. And, maybe one day out of 10, you can use that to go home early. But we are talking about like very high level of, sales production this year for you all. And so that's that. I mean, Fred's asking for a high level of commitment. Give it a shot this year, see what comes out of it on the other end. And justify, I mean, that's pretty much what we've been talking about. There's this customer we had, and he was like 10% higher than everyone else on a freaking $1 million job. And he got it because he came up with thousands of trees that we had sort of individually mapped on the site. And he opened that up in front of the customer and he was like, dude, that's why I'm higher. Like nobody's counting mulch in all those rings, but I did. And that's exactly why I'm priced higher. And their case study is not like something in isolation. You can go and look at this very nice assessment Nate did for us in our first year, saved like $150,000 just on mowing because they had like an average, in a big HOA, like average would be 0.17 acres of turf you can expect to have per home. And it actually turned out to be higher. oh, actually, he was thinking it is higher. It turned out to be lower, and he saved like $150,000 just by having that price. And then there would be some people who would internally have this process like, oh, don't put together an estimate until, or don't get the takeoffs ordered on SiteRecon until the client is asking for price. No, that's just bad strategy. When you can move that upwards in the sales process and get ahead of it, so that you're prepared with better answers or just better questions when they're asking for price, that's a much better strategy. By the way, these guys, if they're already in your priority list and you want to acquire that property, why wait? Because at some point you'll put together that bid anyway, right? So do it early. And then there would be some guys who would be like, oh, on smaller properties, we don't do it. We just like, do that, thumb ruling. But don't do that on smaller properties either, because you do have the space to do more margins on the sites. So you really want to know where the costs are. Keep it tight. Even if it's a few $100s, it is useful.
If you like what you see here, don't forget to click on the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. We post videos every single week.